It was pouring rain when Thomas Reed first saw them four small figures huddled beneath a thin awning outside the grocery store. Their clothes were soaked through, their eyes wide and exhausted. He was on his way home from his night shift, already battling the fatigue that came from juggling 2 jobs and raising his own daughter, Lily. But something about them stopped him in his tracks. They weren't begging. They weren't crying. They just stood there quiet, shivering, forgotten. "Hey," he said gently, approaching with caution. "Where are your parents?" The oldest, a boy who looked no older than 10, stiffened. "They're gone." "Gone?" Thomas asked, his voice soft. The boy nodded. "Mom left last week. She never came back. We don't know where she is." Thomas looked at them, faces too tired for their age, clothes too worn for the season. He couldn't walk away. Not when he knew what abandonment felt like. His own wife had left 2 years ago, never looking back. By the end of the night, the kids were sitting in his small living room, wrapped in warm blankets and sipping hot cocoa. He didn't have much, but what he had, he gave. He called social services, but something about the system's cold response rubbed him wrong. "We'll get to them next week," they said. Next week felt like forever. So he made a decision that would change all their lives. He took them in. He registered them for school, stretched every paycheck, taught them how to ride bikes, and read them bedtime stories. His modest 2-bedroom home felt impossibly small, but laughter started to fill the walls, again laughter he hadn't heard since Lily was born. He never asked too many questions. He figured their mother had fallen on hard times, disappeared, or worse, the kids rarely talked about her. When they did, it was only to say, "She said she'd come back." Months passed. They settled into a new routine. The neighborhood grew fond of the Reed house and the man who somehow managed to make fatherhood look even when he was clearly struggling. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. Thomas had taken the kids to the community library. While they were picking books, a woman walked in, elegant, composed, yet tired. Her eyes scanned the room, frantically, until they landed on the kids. "Eli," she whispered. The oldest boy turned, dropped his book. "Mom?" The room froze. Before Thomas could react, the children had rushed into her arms, clinging to her, sobbing. Thomas approached slowly, unsure, heart-pounding. I thought you left them," he said, confused, 1,000 questions brewing. She looked up, eyes brimming with tears. "I didn't leave them. I was taken." Her name was Charlotte Wexley, heiress to one of the largest private estates on the East Coast. She had gone into hiding after a bitter legal battle with her late husband's family over custody of the children. Then she was involved in a car crash that left her hospitalized under a false identity. By the time she recovered, her children had vanished. "I searched for them everywhere," she said. "I didn't think I'd ever see them again." Thomas stood in stunned silence. The kids' orphans he had folded into his heart were never truly orphaned. "I owe you more than I can ever repay," Charlotte said. He shook his head. "They needed someone. Anyone would have done the same." But she smiled. "Number. Not anyone. Only someone with a heart like yours." Weeks later, Thomas stood outside a large estate, watching the children he loved explore a world they were born into but never knew. Charlotte had insisted he stay involved. More than that, she offered him a role as their full-time guardian and advisor for the new charitable foundation she was launching in his name, the Reed Home Initiative, a program for fostering abandoned or displaced children across the country. Thomas didn't know how to respond, but Lily tugged his hand and said, "Dad, maybe now we can help even more kids." He looked around, at the life they had rebuilt together, at the mother who never stopped searching, at the future unfolding before him. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel tired. He felt hopeful. Because kindness, even when given in the dark, always finds its way back into the light. Charlotte invited Thomas and Lily to stay for dinner that evening. The grand dining room was unlike anything they were used to: chandeliers, polished silverware, and a table longer than Thomas's entire kitchen. But the moment the kids ran in, pulling out chairs and laughing like they always did, it didn't feel so different after all. Charlotte watched them, her eyes glistening. "They talk about you all the time," she said quietly. The pancakes you made on Sundays. The way you held them when they had nightmares. You gave them what money never could. Thomas looked down, a little embarrassed. I just did what I hoped someone would do for Lily if she ever needed it. Charlotte nodded. You gave them family. Later that night, after the dishes were cleared and the kids had disappeared upstairs to play, Charlotte handed him an envelope. Inside was a letter, legal papers in fact. Shared guardianship, permanent role in their lives, and a generous financial trust for Lily's future. I don't want to take them from you, she said. I want to raise them with you, if you're willing. Thomas was quiet. The world had shifted so fast, it was hard to catch his breath. But when he thought about saying goodbye to those kids, to their laughter, to their hugs and sleepy bedtime, whisper she knew he couldn't. I'm not much, he said, his voice rough. I don't have your kind of world. Charlotte smiled. They don't need the world. They need you. Over time, they found their rhythm to unlikely parents, bound by love for 4 children who'd lost so much but gained something rare, a real home. The kids flourished. Lily had brothers and sisters now. Charlotte launched programs inspired by Thomas's compassion, and together they built a place where no child would ever be forgotten. Years later, at a charity gala honoring their foundation's 10th anniversary, Thomas stood on stage, nervous in a suit that didn't quite feel like him. He cleared his throat. I was just a guy trying to do the right thing, he said, glancing at Charlotte and the children. And somehow, doing the right thing gave me everything I never knew I needed. The room stood in applause. And somewhere in the crowd, a young social worker wiped away a tear, inspired to change the system one child at a time. Because sometimes, the greatest riches aren't found in bank accounts but in the hearts we choose to open. The gala ended late that night, but Thomas stayed back for a while. Sitting alone on a bench outside the venue, staring up at the stars. The cool breeze carried the sound of distant laughter, the kids, probably chasing each other through the courtyard like they always did. Charlotte approached quietly and sat beside him. You okay? She asked. He nodded slowly. Just thinking how none of this was ever part of the plan. She smiled. The best things never are. He looked at her, really looked at her not as the heiress, not as the woman who lived behind gates and marble walls, but as a mother who'd fought tooth and nail to get her children back. As someone who had trusted him with her whole world, as a partner. You ever think, he asked, what would have happened if I'd just kept walking that night outside the store? Charlotte followed his gaze toward the sky. I think they'd still be out there. Still waiting, still believing their mom would come back, still hoping for someone like you. A silence settled between them.